kind of hard, guys, but I told you before, these Psalms were compiled. So it means that, what I mean by that is that they, like 1 through 10 does not mean that they went in that chronological order. So it wasn't 1 was written and then 2 was written and then 3 was written. That's not how it worked. Okay? So, for example, we read one that was, I think it was like Psalms like 59 back a few weeks ago. That was one of the first Psalms that David wrote. And it's Psalms 59. So you don't you can't go chronologically and just kind of know that. It's not about that. It's about the experience of it. And the very people that were inspired and put it together in the order that we have it, it is based off of certain experiences. So it's kind of set up by a emotion and experience, and that's why it's kind of broken off into different sections. Does that make sense? Good enough? Okay. So Psalms chapter 3 is where we were at last week, and it results from it. Oh my goodness, Roger. I had the page earlier, and I lost it.
You'll find it.
It was 2 Samuel chapter 15. This is where it derives from. So this is where, not like I don't have enough bookmarks, but I don't feel like I have enough right now. Oh my gosh, like look at my book, it's full of papers of bookmarks in different places. But I feel like if I move one, then I'm going to lose something that I had marked there. So I don't want to move it over. And then I have so many pages that my Bible can't even hold together anymore because of all the extra pages that I added to it. Anyways, so 2 Samuel, guys, chapter 15. And so what has taken place here? And again, guys, David has, he's walked a good walk. He has come down and there was the whole thing there with his son Absalom. And Absalom had taken off, kills his brother, disappears for a period of time, so to speak. He was actually heading out with his father-in-law, which David knew exactly where he was at. But David doesn't seek out any kind of vengeance or anything like that. Absalom ends up coming back to Jerusalem and plays the games. He goes out, he gets himself so many chariots, so many, I forget what the heck they were called, guys, but they were this group of people that would go out before him and would call out and say, here comes Absalom, son of David, the king's son of Absalom, so forth and so on, huh?
A heralder?
Heralder. I don't think that's the word that they used there, but maybe it was. I can't remember. No, it's right here. If I go back and look, it's right there in 15. But instead of spending my time doing that, I was really working on the Psalms part. But what the happening here is that he goes out and he does that, right? And it's kind of just, it's propaganda is what it is, okay? It's what modern day propaganda, okay? So you go out there and you yell enough, and it starts to get imprinted in people's minds, right? How many of us were ever really scared about the border and anything like really with it until everybody started screaming, border, walls, border. And then you hear it, and then you start to wonder, man, maybe we need a wall. We need to secure the border because all of a sudden you're being told that, right? So it's propaganda. So it's somebody with an agenda that's trying to push that agenda, so they keep on talking about that agenda. It's funny in that sense. God has His propaganda. You know what His is? Jesus. And if I have my lady here tonight, Jesus. It's just Jesus, and guys, and it is, and it really is, and it's precious because that really is true. It is the way that it is, and that's what God, because in order for us to be with Him, the only way that we're going to get there is through Jesus. So that's what He wants us hearing and speaking. David had been on that, and he's really been charging down the road. But Absalom comes in, he's playing this little propaganda game, and then would go and sit on the wall. And there would be where people would come to see King David. If they had any issues or problems, they would come to seek David and his wisdom. So what Absalom would do is, whether David was there or not there, Absalom would sit out there and say, hey, listen, David's not here to hear you. But if I was your king, then I would do this for you, and I would do that for you, and it kind of goes down this thing, and basically trying to get the people already thinking about Absalom being that king, right? Then he ends up getting enough people together, and a lot of these guys would have been considered, the guys, they worked with David for 20, 30 years, fought with David by his side. the seer, the seer, he was the seer. He was with David from the beginning of David's battles and wars once he had taken over Jerusalem. You had prophets that all of a sudden, anyways, for David, it just felt like he was completely alone and everybody kind of had turned their back on him. They catch wind and know that Absalom is coming. So David knows it, and David tries to get everybody out. Everybody that wanted to follow him, wanted to go with him, he said, man, let's get out of here. Because what he didn't know was anybody who supported David, that Absalom would kill him. Okay? In this was this group of the Gittites that had fled from the country that they were at and to seek asylum there in Jerusalem, and were granted that by David the day before Absalom comes in. This is the gentleman I spoke of last week that's just amazing to me because of what he experienced from David and the words that David had brought him concerning the gospel, that even though this man had been traveling, seeking refuge and seeking peace, right? Seeking a place where he can be safe with his family and worship God and be loved and love others. And he's seeking that, comes to the city of Jerusalem, and then finds out that Absalom's about to take it over. And so David says, man, everybody let's go. So a bunch of them pack up to go, and this man joins. And David turns around to him and says, listen, man, everybody knows that you just came here yesterday, and Absalom will not kill you. Just go back with you. You've got your little kids. You got wives. You got children. You got daughters. You got sons. Like, go back. And the guy said, no, man, wherever you go, that's where we're going. And follows along with him. Huh?
Wise.
Well, yeah, I mean, in that sense, really, by godly wisdom, yes, he was. By worldly wisdom, he would not have been. By worldly wisdom, you had just been traveling for weeks on end to get to a place of comfort, and you're there. Like, he still would have gotten food and water and all those things to leave all of that safety, to go back off into the wilderness because of the message that you heard. For most people, that would be insanity. Yeah? And this man says, man, no, listen, man, you got God, I'm going with you. And like you said, I mean, that is true wisdom, the truest form of wisdom. So we come down, guys, that all was chapter 3. So Psalms chapter 3 is that happening of them leaving and what David goes through, that emotion. So this week we'll talk about that. I want to come back to that, but we're also going to add in 63. So 63 goes on, and it's verse 22 of chapter 15. So this earlier part was 15 through about 20, 21. And that Psalms 3 was written on. Okay, very, very short psalm, by the way. If you haven't read it, go and read it again. It's very, very short. 63 is a little bit longer, and it's funny because 63 is written about one verse. That is recaptured here. So it's funny because Psalms 3, being short, was actually encompassing a big chunk of text. And then here, it's one verse. It is actually verse 23, but I'm going to go ahead and read 22 also, because I brought up that gentleman, the Gittite. It says, so David said to Ittai, go and cross over. And then Ittai, and this is after Ittai said, no, I'm going with you. So he said, go ahead and then cross over. And so it says, Ittai the Gittite, and all of his men, and all of the little ones who were with him, crossed over. And it says, and all of the country, verse 23, and all of the country wept with a loud voice. And all of the people crossed over. The king himself also crossed over the brook Kedron, and all the people crossed over towards the way of the wilderness. What's the wilderness? The world. Okay, in the spiritual side, the world. Literally, what was the wilderness? Okay, by definition, it is a place that is uninhabited. There's only the beasts. There's only, it's where things go and die. Because if you're out in the wilderness, you're not going to make it. Every beast is trying to eat you. Water is scarce. Food is scarce. It is not habitable. It is not a place that has habitat. So you don't have food just from everywhere. That's why when Moses and they were walking through the wilderness, God had a rock following them through the wilderness, giving them water. That's why it was such a big deal for the manna. And you guys remember what manna stands for? What? Come falling out of heaven. Yeah? Tasted like honey, like bread and honey, manna. And it just was there. Yeah? Quail. Just out of nowhere. Like, that's why those things were so big, is because it was the wilderness. Like, those things don't exist in the wilderness. Yeah? And that's why it's a miracle. Those things were such big miracles for the people to know that God was for them. And remember that the reason why they ended up perishing is because they never could believe that. They never would just really cross over and say, no, God, you are my God. You are for me. I'm going to love you just the way that you love me, and be all out for him as he was all out for them. I think I said that right. Here, they're crossing back over into that wilderness. So if you could, I mean, like, in my mind, you know, I'm picturing, guys, thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands, definitely tens of thousands. You have soldiers. You have brave men who have fought many, many battles, very, very strong. You have their wives. You have their children. You have their children's children. You have your servants and their children. You have little resources. If you remember, when they ride out, and you find out later on here in chapter 15, as they ride out, there's a very, very rich man who comes and meets them and brings them all kinds of food and goods. And if it wasn't for that man who comes out and meets them, they would have all perished. They had nothing. They had to pack up that one night and all of them take off. And the ones that went had to walk on faith. You realize they're leaving everything behind that's ever been good for them. Their houses, everything that they would call, that you would call possession, that would be yours, they have to leave behind. The livestock, they can't take them with them. The vines that they've been growing, that they planted and for years have nurtured, they're walking away from. Walking away from everything. Yeah? To follow their king, and where their king is leading them is into the wilderness. Yeah? Now what's amazing is, guys, is here it says that they wept with a loud voice. And we would want to look at what all they were leaving, and that's why they would maybe be weeping. Scripturally, that is not true. According to other texts that testify to the same thing in Kings and in Chronicles and a couple of different places there, what they wept over was the fight amongst the people of God. That there was a divide. That there were some that were divided off, living in destruction and seeking destruction of others that called themselves a part of the family of God. That's what they were weeping over. Not leaving their possessions. Not the things of this world that we would all like. And me, naturally, immediately when I started reading, I was thinking about everything they were leaving and what they were going to and what that would have had to feel like. And yet at the same time, that's not what bothered them. What bothered them was a civil war that was breaking out amongst the brethren. And that really, in that sense, guys, the spiritual side of that, that Satan was able to come in and cause that division. Yeah? Now, they were going to walk on faith, and so they got up and they walked out of there, guys. So let's go back over to David and his experience from this. So, off the last one, guys, and again, this is him just coming out at the very, very beginning of the gates. They were leaving. This isn't the part there about the weeping, okay, which is what the next 63 is really about. So we're going to go to 3 real quick. Because I have a point that I didn't get in last week at the very, very end, which was really sweet getting there, and Mike Warnke, the wolf. No teeth. The crease, taking the crease off the pants. Okay, so Psalms chapter 3, guys. It says, Lord, how they have increased who trouble me. And we talked about that trouble, guys. Remember trouble? It just caused that ripple, caused that imbalance, keeping things from being able to move forward in the direction that they were going, and or making it harder for it to get there. I did, in that statement, guys, we talked about using water is particularly as that. But if water's traveling downstream and it's got a place that it's going to go, even if things try to block it eventually, it's going to get there. It might have to work, it might take more time, it might take all these different things, but eventually it's going to get to where it's supposed to be. So if it's going towards that ocean, you put a dam and it's going to try to find ways around it. It's going to eat out rock, it won't do anything else. Have you ever seen the Grand Canyon? I mean, like if you haven't, you need to understand it. That came from water getting where it had to get to. And over millions of years, it continued and continued and continued. That created that unbelievable, amazing view. Yeah? And so anyways, guys, the point is that if we are that water, and where we are meant to get to is heaven, that even though there might be things that come to try to trouble us, we're still going to get there as long as we keep the faith. As long as we really understand who we are and what we are. Yeah? And we keep on being about that purpose. We'll get there. Okay? He says, many are they who rise up against me. Many are they who say of me that there is no help for him in God. And guys, I've had many that have said the same thing, and I don't know, I don't want to spend too much time. You guys, it's huge, man. Even if others say that, they're not God. And consider that. Who is God? Not us. Not any one of us. Good, bad, I don't care what you want to try to put out there. No, at the end of the day, God is God. And you know what? There's been many a times where I have felt like that I was all alone. And you know what? There was one who never left me, no matter who else did. No matter who else hated me, there was one who did not. Do you understand what I'm saying? There was one that's always been for me, and that has been God. And honestly, guys, because of that, I know that many of you have been too throughout everything. So don't misunderstand my statement, but where I felt like I was, even though there was brothers that were there for me, but that was because of God and you. I'm not trying to take anything away from you, but okay, sorry. Verse 3 says, but you, O Lord, you are a shield for me. What does a shield do? Okay, it keeps you alive, right? Those who are trying to destroy you, what are they all? So guys, understand the spiritual in that, right? If they're trying to destroy you, then what does that mean? If they're trying to cause death, if they're trying to cause destruction, what does that mean? What does death mean? What's the definition of death? Separation, right? And so that killing. So then that killing and that separation that would take place is from what? From God. Because, guys, the ultimate destruction to destroy would be in hell. Right? And so those who seek these things, but then who is our shield? And let me ask you, if there's going to be a shield that you want to have, how good of a shield can God be? So guys, Satan, with all of his fiery darts, of all the accusations, of all the things you've ever done wrong, or ever thought you've done wrong, what anybody else thought you did wrong, or did to you, or whatever it is. Maybe you want to look at it from the other angle, man. The offense that you try to hold against other people and everything that they did to you. You know who broke down all of those things? You know who blocked out all of it? It was God. It was Jesus, really. And through God, Jesus Christ came, and he's the one, right? And so even now it says that Satan comes and he's firing these fiery darts at us, trying to kill us, trying to knock us down, trying to get us to not believe in what God has done, trying to get us to not bring the gospel to other people. Wait a minute, no, who's our shield? And if he's our shield, then he's going to keep us alive, safe, forgiven, rescued, saved. Yeah? He's our shield. He said, but you, O Lord, are a shield for me. They say this, but this is what you are. You are my glory. And you think about it, anything that people would want to glory in, David had lost all of that. Right? So he has one thing to glory in. And you're the one, Lord, who lifts up my head. And you think about it again, guys, his own son is after him and trying to kill him and trying to take his throne. If you remember some of the other things, guys, he took all of his wives, took them out there on the step, and slept with them, and on the rooftops, and slept with them in front of the people. Absalom went far, far beyond to try to really hurt David in every which way that he could. Yeah? How many of us would be ashamed? He's not fighting back in this sense, right here at this moment, but instead, he gets everybody out with him. How many would think that you're walking away from something you should be ashamed? Guys, it took me a little while to figure this out, but it was easy for me when somebody was saying something to me for me to turn around and fight them. It was a lot harder for me to stop and walk away. It's easy for somebody who is saying evil things to you to turn back and say evil things back about them and to them. it's hard to stop and walk away. So the statement that I like to say, and I like to say to some of the young men here in our school and stuff like that, is it takes more of a man to walk away from that situation than it does for one to stand up. Because when I was growing up, if anybody looked at you wrong, if they said anything to you, you put them in their place. But it took more to walk away from it, and it's harder to walk away from it than it is. But but most of us would feel ashamed if we had to walk away. Oh. Tell her she should have ate the good food.
Exactly. She had a burrito.
I know. She went and got a burrito, nasty burrito, instead of eating good quality food. See what happens? Now her brother has to come into her aid. So guys, this is the thing, man. Okay, I'm just going to count it real quick. Man, Lord, He is our shield. Man, if we have Him, He is our God, then man, He is our shield. And He is who we glory in, and where all the glory stands. If there's anything good, man, it's Him. And man, no matter what's going on, we can give Him glory. And guys, if we can hold our heads up high, no matter what heck we have to go through, we can hold our heads up high. He says, I cried forth my voice, and He heard me from His holy hill. And then again, guys, and I missed that one earlier after verse 2, but here in verse 4, that's Salah, to really consider about it. They say all these things, but this, God, this is who you are. And this is who you are for me. He heard me. Guys, that's such a big thing. It says that God only hears the prayers of the righteous. He heard Him from His holy hill. That would be heaven itself. Yeah? And I think that's a pretty awesome thing to know that God can hear you and does hear you. He says, and I lay down and slept. Have you ever been really upset? How'd you sleep? Yeah? He's like, man, I laid right down. I went right to sleep. How could he just do that? Only by confidence in God. That God's got it. He says, man, I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I got up the next day because God held me up. God kept me. Yeah? Talked about this a little bit last week, guys, but a lot of times, when I was younger, I always wanted to just get out of here. I got saved, woohoo, this world, everything, my own flesh, man, everything, just constantly trying to attack and tear down that faith, right? Like, why not just get out of here? Man, God, just take me, I'm saved. I don't want to deal with this no more, because everything is trying to keep that reality away from me. No, wait a minute, if I'm here for a purpose. It took me a long time to realize that. If I'm here for somebody else, and it's all right, whatever I have to endure right now. Because, man, He has saved me. He is my shield. He is my glory. And He's the one that I need to bring to others. So they can lift up their heads. He says, I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid even of 10,000s of people. So even legions I won't be afraid of, who have set themselves against me all around. So he says, arise, Lord, save me, O my God, for you have struck all my enemies in the cheekbone. You have broken up the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessings upon all of your people. Salah, think about it. So last week I talked about, got into that thing about Mike Warranty because of the teeth being gone. And there was that whole joke that he kind of went over about his dog not having no teeth. People, he used to bark, now he barks. So people break in, and he's like, used to, if they were trying to break in, they would hear that, and they would take off running. Now they break in, they step down, they hear, then they kick their shoes to see if they step in. Meanwhile, the dog's over there biting on the leg, take out the crease out their pants, and that's all they can do. But guys, the thing that I seen going on that right there, but the teeth, they're trying to bite, trying to rip, and trying to tear. But He's the one who's taking out their teeth. And the visual of that, of just knocking them out, knocking their teeth out, where they don't even have to bite anymore. And that's God who does that. He says, for you have struck all of my enemies on the cheekbone. You have broken the teeth of the ungodly. Salvation belongs. You're the one who owns salvation. Nobody else owns it. You remember the song that we did right before this? He says, Lord, return to me the joy of your salvation. And guys, I missed this for a good portion of my life. I always said it, return the joy of my salvation. And it is mine if I believe, right? Like, he gave me that salvation. So there wasn't anything really wrong with that, but just the really recognition that it was his all along. It's not mine. And nothing is. One of the hardest things of having children was the realization that they weren't mine, that they were God's, and it really being that way. And then they were given to me by God for me to take care of and be a steward, to raise in the Lord and those kind of things. But the battle of ownership and having to relent to the reality that, no, God, you are God. I don't know how to put it. There's times where I want to keep my kids safe, but I'm not God. I got to pray and hope that God does. I want all my kids to believe and be saved, but at the end of the day, I can't make them. I can bring them the truth. I can raise them in the fear and admonition of the Lord, but at the end of the day, each generation, it's their own. They're the ones who have to find Him. But if there's no word, then there's no hope. So what I can do is bring the truth, right? And then let God sort it all out, so to speak. One other thing he says here is that there about that struck by enemies on the cheekbone. We know one thing that was so big to me, guys, and last week I didn't go into this. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God creates man, says that it is good, and all the things of the earth. Satan comes into the garden and brings a lie. A lie of what's right and what's wrong. A lie of sin. And every person has bitten into. So the truth is that Jesus Christ has taken away all sin, period. But the bite of sin, the teeth of it. Because when it bites you, it hurts, and it rips, and it tears. Yeah? But if it's gone, it has no teeth. And when I was sitting there and I was reading this, guys, and I had to hear my notes, I remember in that moment when Adam bit into that fruit and God comes into the garden and deals with the situation, that he turned to that old serpent. And he said, you have bruised man's heel, but he will bruise your head. And this statement right here just took me back to that. That God himself taking that old enemy and just, all those teeth, those fangs, all the poison, everything else just knocked right out. No power. If we don't let it have power. If we let it have power, if we're going to believe the lie, then the venom and the poison, and he says that it's like as if poison asp is on their lips. They speak evil all around. But then God, David says, no. All that poison, everything else, man, it's been knocked. Sorry. I'm on camera here. Knock the heck out. Yeah? I'm trying to remember what movie that was. Friday? Yeah, it's Friday, that's right. You can knock the heck out! And that's what that's what God did. Guys, man, the victory that he's had. Yeah? Over that old bully, Satan. So the people are weeping. They are hurting because of this civil war that has taken place. David's been forced out of his home, and he's traveling along, and he hears the hurt of the people. Psalm 63. The title that was given to this was Joy in the Fellowship of God. Fellowship. It means fun with. Of is where it is derived from. If you're going to have fun with, there is no fellowship unless your fellowship is with God. And guess where fellowship comes from? From God. Yeah? So in a moment of mourning and of sadness over Satan trying to divide and over the pain that was happening and taking place, David writes a song about joy. Sorry. I blame Monique. She's been all emotional. And I got all emotional right there. She even had tissue over there ready for herself. No, guys, I mean, man, the struggles sometimes and the moments of sadness that we go through, and to be able to stop and look at the joy in the Lord. It blows me away, David's faith, and honestly, and I hope that through his and our classes here, that whole thing last night about making one like yourself, talk about a man, you can see why he was a man after God's own heart. He was a sinner, messed things up many a times, but man, did he have a heart for God. And in a moment that should have just been so tormenting to him, he wanted to bring everybody back to joy. And that's a beautiful gift. So sorry, my emotions under control. He cries out, "Oh God, you are my God, and early will I seek you. My soul thirsts for you, my flesh longs for you, in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. So I've looked for you in the sanctuary to see your power and your glory, because your loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall praise you. Thus I will bless you while I live. I will lift up my hands in your name. My soul shall be satisfied as with marrow and fatness, and my mouth shall praise you with a joyful lips. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches. Because you have been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. My soul follows close behind you. Your right hand holds me up, upholds me. But those who seek my life to destroy it shall go down into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword, and they shall be a portion for the jackals. But the king shall rejoice in God. Everyone who swears by him shall glory. But the mouth of those who speak lies shall be stopped." Period. Got to jump back real quick. As David walked along the road, he turned back and he seen that there was in fact Levites who were following him, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, Zadok and his sons. So David turned to him and said, "Zadok, carry the Ark of the Covenant back into the city. For if I find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring me back and show me both it and his dwelling place, heaven. But if he says that I have no delight in you, David, then here I am, and let him do to me as he seems good to him." The king also said to Zadok the priest, are you not a seer? Go back to the city and basically perform the job of the priesthood. You keep on doing the job of the priesthood. Tells him that if he ever hears anything, sees anything, that let his sons come out and let him know. So that way he gets heads up. That's actually how David found out that they were coming to attack him, that they set up where the whole thing ends up taking place and Absalom dies. And that's how that whole ambush ended up taking place, was from the priests that he sent back and the sons who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant. So the reason why I brought this up is the picture of David. And he hears this weeping, and he's sending them across over into this wilderness. And he himself is crossed over, and he turns back and he looks. Him comes over the hill, the Levites, the priests. At that point, guys, the scripture makes it clear, like, they weren't there with him. So David did not have people to bring him the message of God. Now, they, loving and believing the calling of David, grab the Ark of the Covenant, they come running. Probably slower, because I have no idea how heavy the Ark of the Covenant was, but one of the laws was you don't drop it. So they weren't quite moving as fast as the rest of the people, so they were some ways behind. And then David turns and says, no, wait a minute, man, all the rest of the people there need you. They don't have no hope, no gospel. You need to go back and perform your duties. You need to go back and preach the word, the truth. So if there's ever any hope, then that's what you need to do. And if God sees fit, if he has any favor on me, he'll make sure I get to come back there and see that Ark of the Covenant again. What was the Ark of the Covenant? What was it? Okay, it was representation.
Everything to do with Christ.
Everything to do with Christ. The perfection, the only way of judgment, the only way to get to God it had to be perfect, had that, the sacrifices and everything all part of that, right? And David says, man, listen, man, if God has favor, I'll get to see that ark. And more than that ark, I'm going to get to see God in his dwelling place, which is heaven. But what you need to do, you need to go preach. In his heart, in David's heart, for the people, even for those who you would look at and say we're against him, he just wanted them to hear the truth. Always wanted there to be hope. And after this, he says, oh God, you are my God. Guys, the ark and the beauty of all the representation, but at the end of the day, was the ark God? While it represented God coming to man, was it God? No, it was just a representation of it. If you remember the other one, he said, man, if you wanted sacrifices, I would give them. That's not what you desire. I think David's pretty aware of the representation and the importance of the representation of those things. And he does not neglect that. If you remember, he builds an altar every 6 paces and performs a sacrifice. I'm pretty sure he understands the importance of it. But on the flip side, that in itself is just that, a representation. Do you understand that? So God is still God. He doesn't need the ark to have God. But you know what? The people need it as a reminder of who God is. And that God had not left them. And that God was still for them. And that God would return to them. As it says, for if you just return to me, I'll return unto you. Yeah? And David wanted that for his people. He says, early will I seek you. So it begs to wonder, when is early? Right now. It starts right now. Early starts right now. When is early for the next moment? Right now. Like, if you're going to start seeking them, then you start right now. And so what basically David's saying is, listen, man, I'm not going to stop, and I'm going to constantly be seeking you. I mean, every moment of every day, I'll be seeking you. Then he comes into this statement here, and it's a description of the emotion of David and what he's going through in that of not having. So he says, my soul thirsts for you. My flesh longs for you. I'm out in the wilderness and in the dry and thirsty land where there is no water. Guys, he's not talking about literal water. It's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the reality of Christ. He's talking about the words of God. He's talking about the ability to be able to hear those words and to be able to have those words. You know what's beautiful is in the moment that he becomes thirsty, verse 2, where does he go? The sanctuary. Now at this moment, just in case you did not know, there was a sanctuary that was in Gad. It was not in the city of David yet. So David literally goes to Gad. If you go back and look at 2 Samuel, you'll see this. He ends up going to Gad. Now, it doesn't say that he goes into the temple and in the sanctuary and performs sacrifices. If you look back also of Samuel, the one who ordained David as king, and anointed him as king, sacrificed him again. And that's why I think where David was actually even anointed. I'm not sure about that part, but I think that's actually where they had went to. But nonetheless, my soul thirsts for you. Guys, there's so many people out there that don't even know what they're thirsting for. And deep down inside them, they just know that they're just empty. And that it's just dry. Have you ever eaten anything that was like, have you ever had a piece of bread that was just really dry and you eat it? Am I the only, me and Andy are the only ones who've ever eaten nasty, dry bread? If you can.
If it don't go away, you're in.
Well, like, no, my thing was like, I've been into it and I was trying, I'm like, but it stuck everywhere. I can't get it out. I can't get it in. I can't. Dry. Dry land. I hope your camera's not on back there because we could hear that all the way up here at the front. And it was stupid, but anyways. That was your wife, by the way. That's her mom. Our mother-in-law. My bad. I heard one of them. All right. Guys, I've been thirsty before, like really thirsty. It's not a good feeling. You feel nauseous. You feel sick, weak. All these different things. All these descriptions that he's using is not about the physical thirst. It's all about the spiritual thirst for God, for his words. Guys, David had not been gone long. But he sent back the priests. That's why I went back and read that slide. Because he sent back the priests, which means that he didn't have nobody to preach to him. If you remember, there was other parts where all of a sudden David is walking along and that there was a moment where he started off kind of down the road and then it was the priest that would come to him. And David would say, oh my gosh, yes, my salvation. That's right, because they would remind him. And here, he's fighting to do everything he can to keep the people up and going, but yet himself just feeling so thirsty. Yeah? Guys, one thing I do believe is because of David's thirst, he did not want anybody else to have thirst. So again, kind of talking about last night's class there. And, sometimes we look at just the negatives. We don't understand how those negatives are positives. There's one thing that we found out was as soon as David really realized his trespasses, what did he want for every trespasser? Deliverance and salvation. He realized that he was a sinner. What he declared he was going to do with every sinner. He said, man, I'm going to see them converted. I'm going to see them crossed over. Because he converted me. Yeah? And I'm the worst of it. He did it for me, so you know what, man, I'm going to go do this for my Lord. Yeah? And guys, so like the passion, kind of how this feels, he's sitting there and he's talking about, man, and how his flesh longs for it. And honestly, when I started thinking about this, and if you want to go, that's what she said, was the longing for, like, honestly, intimacy, sexuality. Okay? Maybe too blunt. But just the want for that intimacy and that desire, that passion for that moment of passion and that longing, So like in my mind, I started thinking about that thirst, and I started thinking about, man, that flesh and that longing for that. And what he's longing for, though, is not the intimacy, not the touch of a woman. He's not looking for those things. He wants to be touched by God. He wants to be curled up with him. He wants to be in love with. He wants to experience that deep emotional effect that takes place, but he wants that with God the Father. And man, guys, if you haven't had that desire for God, find that desire for God. Because, and trust me, like I said, I related it in that sense of sexuality. But, if you can't understand what I'm talking about, maybe you can relate to that. And then understand, it's the closest thing that I could come to describe that yearning for that emotion to have that with the Lord. Is that not what she said? No. I'm sorry.
Beyond what man can give.
It is beyond what man can give you. You are right. I don't take any offense in that whatsoever. Actually, quite the opposite. He says, in a dry and thirsty land. Guys, he was in a place in which there was no gospel. In a dry and thirsty land. Guys, this world, it's this world, guys. It's this world. And when we're out in this world during the week, guys, honestly, these emotions right here, these feelings is how we should be feeling by the end of the week, at the very least, if not throughout it. And that's why the exhortations and the other things in my first morning Sunday school class, I'm just throwing this in here real quick, we've been talking about exercising the things that God has given us to exercise so that we can be better servants and experiencers of God. Okay? And doing it for our body. And one of the ones that he hits over and over in it is he says exhort. And literally the next part in that text there, Timothy, is he says make sure that you exhort. Make sure that you keep the doctrine of faith and that you do not let anybody despise your youth and preach the word. But exhort one another. And that was the first thing he let off was that exhort, guys, how big that is and how much more we need to be doing that. And there was a time when we were doing that a lot with each other. We were constantly talking to each other, exhorting each other, and that really had kind of tapered off there for a while. We need to get back to doing it. Because I don't know about you, but it's a thirsty week. It's a dry land. And you know what? It sucks to have to go all the way to Sunday and longing for him when he's with us all the time. But sometimes we have to have somebody to remind us that he is. Yeah? And thank God for the sanctuary and get your butt back in the sanctuary come Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, as much as you can. Yeah? But at the same time, throughout the week, man, guys, we should be exhorting one another when we're having to walk through that wilderness. He says there is no water there. There's no word. There's no life. There's nothing that's going to bring that life, which is the word of God. He says, so I have looked for you in the sanctuary. And he says, I went there to look for you to see your power and your glory. How is the power of God? How did you know that God was all-powerful? When was the moment that you really, really knew? Deb, what did you say?
I said when he knew me.
So when you knew that he knew you is when you knew that he was all-powerful. And when did you know that he was all glory? Like all glory was due to him? When he loved you, even though he knew you.
Yes.
Ain't that awesome?
Yeah.
I love the description there, Deb, because I wouldn't have described it that same way, but that's really the same heart that I had in it. Yeah, no, it was when I knew that he saved me, that he loved me, that he was for me, even though I am what I am, and I've done what I've done, and yet he loved me anyways. He loved me beyond me being the sinner. Man, to see that, to see his power and his glory. Guys, and the evidence of that is Jesus Christ. Every bit of that is Jesus Christ himself. He says, so because of your loving kindness is better than life. Loving kindness. As a result of your loving kindness, that love is that unmerited, unconditional love. It is that love of agape. And that kindness is going out of the way for somebody even though they do not deserve it. How far did he go out of the way with his love for you even though you did not deserve it? All the way to hell and back, literally. Yeah? I mean, guys, nowhere would anyone do that. And guys, he says, so that, just having that loving kindness is better than life. It's better than anything you can find in this life, is having that loving kindness. Yeah? And he's like, man, Lord, it's yours because your loving kindness is better than life. Because of that, my lips are going to praise you. He's lost his home. He's lost some of his wife. With that, some of his children. Friends. He's lost his own city. His son hates him and is trying to kill him. Seeks to destroy his union with God. His own son seeks to destroy his union with God. And David says, you know what, God? Your loving kindness is better than anything in this life. So what my lips are going to continue to do is praise you. Guys, if there ain't some inspiration to be found right there in that alone, guys, I don't care what kind of heck you're having to go through. But man, can't you see that God has loved you? He killed his son for you. He took away all of your sins. He went to hell and paid for them all and rose victorious that you can have everlasting life. Talk about loving kindness. So whatever heck you're having to deal with and go through, and I mean, trust me, I'm sorry. This world's cursed. And everything is trying to trouble it. Remember, who's our shield? Man, who's for us? So you know what, man? What should our lips, just like David said, his lips will be doing? Where's our lips going to be? Praising him. He says, and thus I will bless you while I live. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. As long as I kill me tomorrow. But tonight, I'm be doing? Praising you. I will lift up my hands in your name. And that literally is that of praise. And it's a recognition that, God, you got it. I can't do it. I can't touch it. I can't take care of anything, Lord. I give up. I surrender. I'm done. It's all you, God. I lift up my hands in your essence because you are God. The word God means I am. So because of your name, you got it. I'm just going to praise you. And my soul that was so thirsty is satisfied, shall be satisfied as if I was able to eat the marrow and the fatness. So I don't know if you've ever had a steak. But if it's marbled steak that is marbled right, you don't have to add butter or anything to it to make it tender. It tastes good. It's that. Yeah? Now the marrow part, personally, not my cup of tea, but I get the fulfillment of it and the strength that comes from it. There's the richness. There is nothing that is more rich of that of the animal than the marrow. There is nothing that is more nutritious per square inch than that of the marrow. It would be the best part of it all. You get to it. You do know where the marrow's at, right? Inside the bone. What's inside the bone. Yeah? So I've seen people do it. My own mother-in-law. It's something here. I just can't bring myself to do it, but tons of people love it. But I do understand, again, guys, the nutrients, the richness, all of those things. He said, man, it's just going to be satisfying. And when I got that fatness, I was like, oh, yeah. I like the fatness. He says, and my mouth shall praise you with joyful lips. Oh, when I remember you on my bed, I'm laying there in the night, and all of a sudden my mind comes to you. Guys, I've had some of the worst nights of sleep, but some of the best rest. On restless nights when my mind keeps on going back to the Lord. When I'll wake up with thoughts on Him, thoughts on Him, thoughts on Him. Like hardly sleep at all, but so precious. When I remember you on my bed, I meditate on you in the night watches. Because you have been my help. You ever been in need? Just call. We all need somebody to lean on. And I might have a problem that you would understand. We all need somebody to lean on. And God just says, so lean on me. Because I'm strong. We all need a friend to help us carry on. Guys, man, that's our Lord. Because you have been my help. You've been my friend. You've always been there for me to lean on. No matter what troubles came. Therefore, in the shadow of your wing, I will rejoice. Because I don't know, this whole statement here. The next one says, my soul follows close behind you. Your right hand upholds you. I immediately start thinking about chickens. In the shadow of the wings. Okay? And then following close behind. I don't know how many of you guys ever watch like little ducks and little chicks and stuff like that. The little tiny babies, right? And they'll be just running along and they're goofy. They're uncoordinated. They just fall on their face. All kinds of stuff. But as soon as there's any kind of threat, you know the first place they run to? Under their mama's wings. And immediately when they're there, they forget about all the trouble. And sometimes they start walking back out. She's like, oop, no, you're still a threat right now. And they're like, yeah, Mom, I'm good. Yeah? But guys, I mean, that's God for us. And like I've talked about this once before in the class. If you've ever messed with a hen when she has chicks, she will mess you up. Like, I'm serious. She will not let you get to them. She will kill, she will die. And only if you take her out will you get those chicks. She'll give up everything for them. Guys, God has given his only begotten Son for us. And if he kill his own son, then what would he keep? You know, guys, all he would do is keep bad, hurtful things away from us under the shadow of his wings. Yeah? And see, we may not feel like we have a lot of other safety around us. Just like a little chick, honestly, he ain't got anything else out there to protect her except for that little hen. And that little hen is not built with armor, you know? And yet, she will take on anything, a wolf or anything else, to try to protect her hen, her chicks, I'm sorry. And God is bigger than any hen in that sense, guys, you know? But, I mean, my point is that there might be times you don't feel like there's a whole lot, but yet God, man, he's got you right there. If you're his, he's got you. He's got you underneath his wings. He's going to protect you. You know another thing about the chick that you always know? No chick likes to be left behind home. They'll be goofy, they'll be chasing little bugs and stuff like that. And then they realize mama's moving off, and they will all line up, and I mean right on her tail. Because they know as long as they stay close, they're safe. Everything's going to be all right. Yeah? So he says here, he says, man, you have always been my help. Therefore, in the shadow of your wings, I will rejoice. And guys, another thing is that shadow side of it, it's not being under, it's the shadow of it. Because right now we walk it by faith. We don't see God standing there taking out our enemies, but we believe that his hand is right there, protecting us. Yeah, it's the shadow of those things. And he says, my soul follows close behind you. Because as long as I'm just close behind you, I'm going to heaven. It's where Jesus goes. So if we're close behind him, and we are closely behind him, to entering in. Oh, and what's going to keep me going and keep me up? Holding me up? It's your right hand, your strength. For he sits at his right hand of his Father and made the earth his footstool. Jesus Christ. But as for those who seek my life to destroy it, they shall go down into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword. They shall be a portion for the jackals. Very descriptive here. Those who seek to destroy, to send me to hell, to cut me off from the union with you, they are actually cutting themselves off from you, with you. They will fall by the sword, brutality of a sword going through somebody, and their gut spilling out and falling on it. Very, very descriptive. And then a portion for the jackals. Jackals are a type of wild dogs that are very savage. They eat dead, nasty things that nothing else would want to even have anything to do with it. See, a lion is smart enough that it wants to eat something that's been freshly killed. A jackal eats all kinds of dead. All right? Then he goes on in verse 11, he says, but the king shall rejoice in God. And he's literally talking about himself. But this king, he's going to rejoice in God. Everyone who swears by him shall glory. They're going to have glory. Yeah? But the mouth of those who speak lies shall be stopped. Lie of sin. The prophetic side of this, guys, let me hit this real quick. We're out of time. But let me hit this real quick. Who seeks your life? Okay, Satan. Okay, we talked about 4 last week. We had the false prophet. We had the great whore, who's also known as the common. Yeah? We had Satan himself, and we have the Mimai, the beast. His enemies. And they seek to do what? To destroy. But those who seek my life to destroy it, these enemies that seek to destroy my life, where were they given power? I'm sorry, by whom maybe I should say, or I don't know how to word it, but I guess by whom were they given power? Made alive. So if you look at Revelations, guys, it was all by Satan. Satan in the garden brought that beast alive. He brought the false prophet to life. Brought that we think that we can find life in this world. So it's that of the economy or of the false world, the false prophet of this world, that life can be found in this world. He's the one who brought up that dragon. Those different heads. Right? That beast of different heads that nobody thinks that they can kill. But what they've done is only guarantee themselves that place in hell. They shall go into the lower parts of the earth. I remember there was this dude who lived a perfect life, got up on 2 sticks of wood, who did not and could not die according to God's justice, yet taking on all of our sins and representing us, took away these enemies. And he went to the lower parts of the earth, as Scripture testifies. For who has descended into the lower parts of the earth, or ascended into heaven? Only Jesus Christ. Shall go into the lower parts of the earth. They shall fall by the sword. And there's a scripture that lets us know that the sword is the, I heard whispers, words of God. So they shall fall by the sword, by the word of God, by God's word. And the word came to man. And the word became and is Jesus Christ. And even now, guys, those enemies try to rise up by the words of God, they're slain. And all the power, taken away because it's already been defeated, already been taken to the abyss. Now for me, I'm going to rejoice in God. For everyone who swears by Him will have glory. But the mouth of those who spoke the lie, their mouth shall cease. So guys, the prophetic side that I see in all this is Jesus Christ Himself coming and what He was going to do with all those enemies and everything else that they tried to keep us separated from the life that is in Jesus Christ. Yes? And that they've already been defeated by Jesus Christ, that He, through His words, has taken them out of the way. That even the lie itself has no power. And there will be a day where every mouth will stop, every knee will bow, and then every tongue will confess that only Jesus Christ was Lord. And there was only one Savior, Jesus Christ. And all of those who believed in Him for their righteousness will enter in. And everyone else that had their own way and their own works will be judged according to that. Then they will be bound hand and foot and thrown into the lake of fire in the book of works. The book of all their works will be thrown in there with them. Now Satan himself will be in the bottom of all of that pit. There's a scripture that testifies that we who have been saved, that we will walk by and look and see Him. And His mouth stopped, not able to spew anymore. We'll say, what? That little thing is who tormented all of the nations. Looks so big, looks so strong. No, Jesus Christ is already defeated. And guys, we got to live that. We got to glorify our Lord, love Him for who He is, have that heart of David no matter what we're going through, no matter what troubles, no matter what things in this life seem like they are. God is greater than those things. His word is still true. His work is still completed. It is the way that it is, and we as Pleasant View have to stand on that reality. Because the evil one, he does seek to destroy us while we are yet here. And we don't want to take that for granted. I'm telling you that his power is gone unless we give him power. His mouth has already been stopped as long as we will stop it with God's words. But if we ourselves will take it in, and if we ourselves will spread those lies, then we become a part of that. We become a part of the disease, not the cure. Man, you guys, we as Buddy, we have to stand. We have to stand for truth. We have to continue to march on. And if we do it, guys, all these little ones that we've seen that's been coming, all those little ones that David was watching, walking across that river, as they were walking out of what seemed like the wilderness of death, you could see why all of a sudden he said, you know what, no, we're not going to sit here and weep. We're going to find fellowship with God. We're going to have fun with God. Because that's where it's at. It's in God. It ain't in this world. Yeah? So guys, I love it. Pray that it be inspirational for every single one of us. I pray that all of us would be made disciples of David. Yeah? At least a little piece. Start off with a little piece. I don't know about you. I never can stand just a little piece. If I get a little piece, I always want a little bit more. You know, I want the whole day back. You know? So, anyway, I love you guys. Pray that everybody has a wonderful, wonderful night. Hopefully it was a great class again tonight, guys. I look forward to next week.